Let go of what you think you're supposed to be. Embrace who you are. Hello and welcome to Mindfully Thrive with me, your host, Ella Humphreys. This is the podcast that celebrates the present, the joy in where we are, the journey it's taken to get here, and the ability to see our greatness for the future. We celebrate female founders, adventure seekers, and creative entrepreneurs who are building their dreams alongside raising babies and any other life commitments that can so easily distract us from the path we truly desire. This is a podcast about coming back to who we are in this life, and that our dreams, goals, and ambitions are valid and possible, while also being a loving and present parent. This week's quote by Brené Brown is lived out and used as inspiration for my guest and the work she does with her clients on a daily basis. Laura Agar Wilson is a business mentor and designer. She takes a stunningly soulful approach to coaching business owners and other coaches to build their businesses in an authentic way. Her work helps heart-centered coaches start and grow a thriving community. Her flawless Instagram feed and real-life stories are in harmony with her business name, Wholeheartedly Laura. And this is the gift she is bringing to help others, bringing themselves and their story to the forefront of their brand. Laura shares with us all the authentic and heartfelt parts of her journey that has led her to where she is today. That is, with a thriving mentoring service, a balanced work-life setup, and space for self-care in between. So let's welcome Laura to Mindfully Thrive. So hi Laura, welcome to Mindfully Thrive.
Hi, thank you so much for having us.
As you may know, I always ask my guests 3 starter questions. And the first one is, what are you grateful for today?
Well, I try and do my gratitude practice every evening. So I'm just recalling the things I was writing on that last night. I've just recently had my garden done a little bit. So I've had some new turf put down and it's tidy, and I'm so grateful that I've got such a beautiful outdoor space. I was out there this morning having a coffee, and I'm really, really grateful for that today. I'm so grateful. I had a lovely client session this morning, and I'm really grateful that I get to work with such lovely people. I'm really grateful for my daughter at the moment. She's just so much fun. She's like 17 months and she's just hilarious. And I'm really grateful for all of for the humour that she brings, I think.
It's a beautiful age.
It is, yeah. It's really so much good fun.
Yeah. And what does thrive mean for you?
So to thrive for me really means to have access to the things that you need to feel your best, to do your best work in the world, for you to reach your potential. I think that to thrive for me, that is kind of the way that I would think of it. It is just this of having all the things that you need so that you can really do the things that you want to do. Be who you want to be in the world, I think, as well. I think that's such a thing, isn't it? I think it's really difficult to be who you want to be when you don't have the things in place that are allowing you to thrive.
Lovely. And what would you say an ideal morning looks like?
Oh, so an ideal morning would be, it's always a little bit different because I think there's like a weekend and then there's a weekday thing. So I always kind of think of it a bit differently. But I think during the week, it would be getting up after a really good night of sleep that my daughter has slept all the way through the night and my son had as well, which doesn't always happen at the moment. And then it would be waking up. It would be having like just fun getting ready. Like this morning we were dancing around upstairs with some music and things, and then seeing the children off to like breakfast club and nursery, and then coming home and just being able to sit in the garden with a coffee, with my notebook, listening to Radio 6 music, which is just what I always listen to, and just being able to just have like a slow pace of getting ready and just kind of having that time to myself as well. So actually that's a bit like kind of what happened this morning. So I had a really nice morning this morning, and a bit of yoga or something like that, a bit of movement, of a walk out would be really, really lovely as well. And then I think on a weekend it would obviously involve a lot more of the children and my husband and stuff in that, but I think it would be getting up, having a really lovely breakfast together, and then going to the beach.
Yeah,
I think that would be my ideal weekend walk.
Ideal.
Yes.
Well, I'm glad you had one similar to that for you today. So, Laura, you're a business coach. Could you share a little bit with us about your business? I know you're a mum of two, as you just mentioned. How old are your children?
So I have a son called Finley who's 6, and then my little girl Freya, she's 17 months.
Lovely. Very nice.
Yes.
Quite close together.
Yeah, yes.
Yeah.
So they're lots of fun. And so my business is Wholeheartedly Laura. And I started off my business as a health coach back in 2012. So I kind of started a blog a little bit before then. So it feels like I've been doing this for quite a long time. And then I pivoted into kind of more business coaching and business mentoring, just as kind of my interests and things changed, and I started helping a lot of other health coaches with their businesses because mine was doing really well, thankfully. And now I help other people set up and grow coaching businesses that enable them to have a life that they really enjoy, because that's one of the things that I found, the most profound thing I think I found from my coaching business, other than helping other people, of course, is that I get to make money in a way that feels really good, and I get to have the flexibility that I need to be able to thrive in my life as well.
So, wow, going back to 2012, the online world must have looked very different at that time. How were you coaching, and what did your coaching business look like back then?
So it was hugely different. I mean, I don't actually think we had Instagram. When I was thinking back, I don't even think we had that then. So it was very different. I mean, I'm trying to think of how, so I started off in 2010. I had like a blogspot blog. I don't know.
Is that how you
listeners
began your health coaching then, through blogging?
Yes, through blogging. So that's how everything started. And then it was from that I decided to train as a health coach. And then at first, a lot of the way I was working was Skype. It wasn't. I'm sure Zoom must have existed, but I can't remember Zoom being a thing. But it was all on Skype, and I had a few in-person clients as well that I would meet locally, which was really lovely. And that's really how it started, was blogging and a little bit of Facebook. And then I think as things kind of it was just such a different
world
thing back then. There wasn't a lot of coaches. I think when I trained to be a health coach, I think there was perhaps 3 of us, like in the there wasn't a lot of us in the UK at all. And now I think every intake there's about, there's lots and lots more now.
So going back to that time, I think for coaches, it's very often we're looking to do something that benefits us. What made you choose to go down the route of being a health coach? I know you've evolved since then, but how did those doors open up for you? What was the intention for that?
So I'd started off my blog because I'd struggled with my weight for quite a long time and body image and things like that. And I went through quite a bit of a journey really in those first couple of years of blogging. And I decided to train as a health coach. It wasn't even really to start a business. It was primarily to better understand my own health challenges and my own stuff. And it really, really helped in that respect. It really helped me let go of a lot of rules that I'd been living by, and the way that I'd been thinking about food and exercise. It really helped me shift how I'd the way that I'd been doing things before then. So I really did kind of do it more for myself. And that was always the thing. I was like, well, this is a lot of money to spend, but at the very least, it's going to be something for me. And also at the time I was working with community organisations. So my kind of background before all of this was working with community organisations and youth groups and things like that. So I started off doing a few different activities and programs and things with community organisations and like young people in care homes, and all sorts of different things like that. Young people in schools, I did some projects with them as well. So a lot of the first initial health coaching I did was kind of community based, which I live in the northeast of England, so we've got some quite socially deprived neighbourhoods and things locally and everything like that. So it was really great, rewarding work. And then I got pregnant with my son, and that kind of meant that I was just it was a lot easier to do one-to-one coaching and to work online.
when you were doing the community work, were you freelancing or were you employed by organisations for
It
the
was a little
projects?
it was a little bit of both. So I set up a social enterprise with my
Wow.
I actually had like the job that I had was it was great. It wasn't the thing for me because obviously I wanted to start my own business, but I had a really wonderful manager who was also a Reiki master.
Wow.
So I worked in a community organisation, like a charity, and me and my former manager, the Reiki master, we set up a separate social enterprise. So we delivered a lot of these projects through the social enterprise. So at one point I was kind of employed part-time, doing some kind of work through the social enterprise and then doing some work through my own company as well. And that was it was really fun and really varied and interesting. And then as things changed, I started to do more work within my own company, for my own company as well.
So you always knew that you wanted to be self-employed? Or did you not?
I don't think I did.
No?
I think it was one of those kind of like dreams that I never really thought would happen.
Possible.
Yeah, I think so. And I mean, when I started, because I did like my degree in art and design, and then I did some voluntary work around support, like arts and organisations. So I like volunteered at the local authority.
Difficult avenue really to grow in, I think, the arts. I did an arts degree also
as well. Yes.
Yeah. So I do kind of appreciate that you kind of have to really search out the charities, the organisations where you can get funding. It's all about applying for funding.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So I was doing I was being a volunteer at the local authority in their arts development department. So I was quite interested in arts development, and that kind of led me a little bit into the community stuff, and I really enjoyed the community stuff. So
that involved helping people.
Yes, yeah, absolutely, yeah. And just kind of and just like getting stuck in with people. Do you know what I mean? And I mean, I do that in a different way now, but I did enjoy it back then.
So what would have been the biggest struggles at the time for you beginning your initial coaching business?
Sorry, you go on. What you're going to say there?
How did you find that your initial clients that got the ball rolling?
A lot of it was just because I'd built up an audience through my blog. So I think at the time it was, blogging was like a thing. And it was, I mean, I think what's kind of happened over the last few years is that whereas blogging was like a big thing, Instagram came along, and it's kind of like a lot of the emphasis now, I think, is more on Instagram than blogging, which I think is a bit of a shame. I still think blogging's really cool.
Yeah, and I kind of think it might come back, but I can see.
But it was through people who had already followed my blog, which was lovely. So they already knew me quite well.
And how consistent did you find yourself being with your blog? Did you create a blog that was, in your eyes, your business? This was going to become a business, so you committed to it as if it was already a business?
When I very first started it in 2010, I didn't think in a million years it would be a business. And then as time went on, I started to see that it could, there was something there. I think that I just found there was just something that had so much potential. I didn't really know what that could be. And it wasn't until I came across the health coaching qualification that I realised that that's what it could be. But I knew it had a lot of potential. And I was blogging very consistently and very often. I think there was a time period, I'm trying to think of when it was probably like 2010, 2011, when like bloggers, like healthy living bloggers, were blogging like 3 times a day. So it was just hilarious. I mean, I wasn't blogging that often, but it was some of like the big bloggers in America, they were blogging like 3 times a day. It was very like intense, and it was very, I suppose again, that's how Instagram's taken some of that away, because it was very much like, oh, so this is what I've done today, this is my workout, this is the meal that I ate. It was very documentative, I think, of people's lives, which actually I think is fun as well. But it was very different from what it is now.
So how did you flow into this solid business coach that you are today, Wholeheartedly Laura?
So like I said, I mean, it started off with just a lot of other health coaches asking me how I'd done it. So, I was enjoying quite a bit of success, and I was getting clients, and I had two recipe books published, and which was amazing. And I was running programs. So I did like a 8-week program and then a membership and things. So it was just really thriving, and I loved it. And I started to get other health coaches asking me a little bit more about how to do things. And I think because I've kind of got this background of like the organizational stuff, and because I've got my art and design background as well, which comes into like web design and things, I just found that work really, really interesting and really fulfilling. And as time went on, I kind of started to do both the health coaching and the business stuff. And then it wasn't really until quite recently, when my daughter was born, I kind of had the realization, like, I've got to just go in to do one thing now. I can't quite manage to do both as much as I would have quite enjoyed it. And I think I just had to make a decision, and I decided to go with the business mentoring side of things, because I think anyone who knows us will just say, I could sit and talk about business stuff until the cows come home. I could just sit and talk about it forever.
There's your message. Yeah.
And I kind of feel like, I think with the health stuff, like I put out a program at the back end of 2019 when I was pregnant with my daughter, called Wholehearted. And I just feel like it was almost like that was my contribution to the wellness, health, self-care space. Like, if I was going to tell anyone like what my approach is, like how my advice, like, it was in that program. And I felt like that's out in the world now. People can buy that if they want. Like, that's my work in this space kind of done. And it just felt kind of complete at that point. And I just felt like I haven't got anything else I think I can add to this conversation from a professional kind of perspective, other than what I've got in this now. And it just kind of felt nicely finished.
Do you feel like within Wholeheartedly Laura, you therefore are continuing to grow and evolve yourself while you're also training and coaching other coaches? And
oh yes, absolutely. Yeah, I think as I used to kind of feel bad, the fact that I'd changed. So I felt, was it a bad thing that I just, pivoted into something else, that I kind of like, that I've changed my focus and
direction.
things. But yeah, but
we're kind of conditioned
changes.
But we're also kind of conditioned into believing that you pick something and stick with it for the rest of your life, and that is just really not how I feel most of us are made.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, definitely. And I think I took a lot of that kind of, really internalized a lot of that, and I felt, for a while, I think one of the reasons it took me quite a while to make the decision just to completely change was because of that. I kind of felt guilty. I felt like, am I a bit flaky? Am I a bit of a sellout? Even though it's not, like, being a business coach is not easier to make money than a health coach. It's really not. Like, I think people have got this kind of impression that it's easier, but so there was a lot of like stuff that I needed to work through, I think, around that. But it was really just remembering, it's not like, how can we expect someone to still, like, people change, people's interests change, and just kind of, allowing myself to evolve, I think, within my business. And, I might evolve again in the future. I probably will evolve again in the future. And that's okay.
Definitely. And I think that's a wonderful message to put out there. Did you have a coach? Do you work with someone that helped you work through that transition and finding the answers to, were you stuck? Did you feel stuck at that time?
Oh yes, absolutely. I really did. I've worked with a couple of brilliant coaches. So I worked with, I'm sure some of your listeners will be familiar with Lucy Sheridan, comparison coach. So I worked with her, not around comparison, but around business development stuff. And she was really helpful in terms of just like having someone supportive and helping me kind of see where things were at and what I was doing and what the options and things were. And that was really useful. I had a great session with a coach, and she's more of a coach for freelancers, but I've known Emma for quite a lot of years, and she knows my work as a client. Like, she's bought things from me. And I had a session with Emma Cossey, and she really helped me just be like, yeah, it's totally fine to just have one thing, like, just do it. Why people like, where's the resistance come from? And she was like, yeah, just kind of let go of it. So that was like the real session where I think I just needed something to give it. And I think sometimes that's the thing with running your own business, is you don't have Like you don't have
Anyone
your
to
line
bounce
manager, you don't
off.
have,
Yeah,
you don't have someone you can go to. And I think that's why having a coach,
definitely
like
will.
coaching is obviously so good in so many different ways. But I think sometimes we just need that like permission, even though we're the only person who can give us permission for anything. I think sometimes we just need to be able to talk that out and get that from someone else.
Definitely so. And how would you define the difference between mentoring and coaching?
So for me, mentoring is a bit more, I'm going to tell you how to do this. And coaching is a bit more, I'm going to ask you questions and you are going to answer those. And in answering those, you're going to figure out what it is that you, what to do next kind of thing. So I think I think mentoring's a bit more directive, whereas I think coaching's a bit more of a passive kind of process where it's more about supporting someone to come up with their own answers, whereas I think mentoring's a bit more, I've done this and here's some options I'm going to lay out for you, and it's a little bit more directive than coaching.
And how did you find where you sat in that sort of scale, or what would you call it, those aspects of guidance? How did you find your place as a mentor? Because of the tools and of the trade maybe that you use?
Yeah, I think it was just, I think we've all got our own style in terms of how we work with people. And I think when I was doing more health coaching, it was a little bit more coaching based. But what I tend to find is that when people come to work with me, what they're looking for is they want something a bit more solid.
Guided, yeah.
And a bit more guided. And whereas I definitely, like a session that I had this morning, it was a more of a coaching. It was, it was someone who was a bit uncertain what our next steps are. And it was a bit more coaching because it wasn't like, it just wasn't the right, to mentor her, it wasn't the right thing because what she needed was coaching and to figure out our next steps with some really useful kind of questions and feedback and stuff like that and observations. So I am quite happy to like move between the two, I think. Yeah. But I mean, I think people generally who people look at me, the kind of like, they want me to say, well, here's a strategy that you could use. I know that this has worked because it's worked with another client. These are some of the pitfalls. These are some of the things that you can try differently. Like, how does that feel for you? Like, is this like kind of bringing up anything like physical in terms of like, oh my God, that sounds like an icky, horrible strategy, I don't want to do it. Or does it feel good? So it's always kind of like a bit of a mix. Like I bring some stuff of that in, but
whereas coaching, it feels probably you have to hold back quite a bit. You have to wait for them to guide you in the next right move, sort of questions and answer based. Whereas you might just have the solution immediately.
Yes. And I think it's just, like I say, I think it's just like my style of working with people. I'm a little bit more directive, but and that's okay. And that's why I don't really call myself a coach, because I think what I do is more mentoring really. But again, I think a lot of us kind of move between different, we use different kind of styles, don't we?
It's possibly where this authentic self comes into play. And you're very much about that, what it means to show up in your business as someone authentic. Is that something you really work with your clients, for them to actually own their authentic selves?
Yes, I think it's a really big part of what we do. And I think it's something that, especially when it comes to our businesses, it can feel very vulnerable. And for a lot of us, when we're starting a business, it's this new thing, it's this new way of being seen, because often we start businesses around something that we've been really interested or passionate about, or a journey that we've had. And often not a lot of people know that, or have been privy to that journey that we've already been on. And I think it can be easy to feel like we need to be someone else to be successful, to get clients. And it can be very easy, especially these days with people sharing so much on social media, it can be very easy to look at other business owners, or other coaches, other people doing similar work, and feel like you're not good enough, or that your journey isn't the right journey, or that you are somehow wrong. There's a lot of a lot of ways that we are told, in obvious ways and not so obvious ways, that we're told that something about us is wrong. And I think it's really important to question that, because what I've found in my kind of journey, and a lot of the people who I've worked with have found as well, is that the things that we kind of label as wrong, and I'm doing air quotes but for the listeners, the things that we kind of label as wrong are actually things that people really connect with us on. and I think every time I posted a blog post, like when I was doing more health coaching stuff, that I felt really nervous. And I mean, I don't think like I wouldn't encourage people that you don't have to share stuff that makes you feel nervous, but the ones where I've hit publish with kind of like a little tremble and thought, oh, is this kind of like a little, am I sharing a bit? Is it
too much?
Am I sharing too much, or are people going to judge me for this? And always it was met with like, me too. Oh, I totally get, like, I'm so glad that you've shared that. Like, that's exactly how I feel. And I think that's so important, because when we can show that side of ourselves and show that stuff, other people feel seen. And from like, obviously from like just a human perspective, that's so like beautiful, necessary, and valuable and wonderful. Yeah. And then from a business point of view, it makes good business sense, because when we're creating that connection, we're in a better position to be able to support people, whether it's through our paid services or our free content or whatever. So I think it just makes a lot of sense to do that. And also it's draining trying to keep up a facade.
It's really unhealthy to be trying to live as someone that you're just not. Yeah, and it's exhausting. Takes your energy away. Which brings me on to the fact about, I love how much you promote joy, and life like should be joyful and should be living through joy within your work. So like how important is the pleasure aspect of building a business? Can some people get carried away? Like, I can see myself getting totally carried away with it's all beautiful and joyful, and then, oh, what are the practical issues that I need to be churning out, and what should I be focusing on today, instead of just living up there in the joy.
I mean, that's a really interesting one, I think. I honestly think that when we do stuff that we enjoy, it just makes sense, because it takes like less relative energy, it flows more, like it just makes sense on a lot of levels. And sometimes I think, like again, I think this is one of those things that gets in our head and that we internalize a little bit, is that there's all the business gurus who say you have to do this to build a business, so you should be doing this, you should be doing that. And I think, other than a few kind of like fundamental things, and there's not really that many, I think there's lots of different ways to build a business. And I think if you can build a business that is and where you are doing something that you enjoy, then why not do it that way? It just makes kind of sense. And yes, there's fast ways and slow ways and different ways, but I think it's more about, I mean, this is something that I'll try and do in my work with clients, is finding ways that work for that person as a complete person. So there's no point in saying, like, I was listening to a podcast recently that was saying, for growth on Instagram at the moment, like, you need to be posting like probably more than once a day, and you need to be using all the features of Instagram and blah blah blah. And I was like, well, that sounds great, but like, for most of my people who are mums and who don't want to work like more than 20 hours a week, like, that is just, unless you kind of like outsource stuff, like, that's going to be really, really difficult. So what other ways can we build our businesses other than that? And I think it's just about looking at, also for me, looking at my clients or looking at yourself and thinking, okay, so like, is this a thing that's actually going to work, or is it just going to be like, I kind of like pushing stuff up a hill, pushing something very heavy up a hill,
and exploring what feels aligned to who you are. And if it doesn't, what I believe is, if it doesn't feel right in the moment, it's not going to have the effect that you want it to have anyway. So like, not try and force things because you're told this is the way to do it. And
definitely. And I think that's, and it's so important, that alignment is so important, because I think it's, again, if it's not feeling good, or it's not feeling aligned, like, it's going to take so much more energy to do. We're not going to like want to do it. We're going to probably like procrastinate, and we're going to create blocks,
and the results won't be there having done it.
No, exactly. So yes, I think it can be useful. I think sometimes I get what you mean about like the kind of getting carried away with stuff. And I guess part of it is just and one of the ways that I kind of like, not rein it in, but just kind of bring it down to earth a little bit, is having this kind of attitude of testing things out, which I like, because it's quite fun and experimental. But it means that, like, if you can look and say, well, is this actually working? And then make a decision on whether or not you keep doing that, or you do something different.
And pivot when things are not working out, being able to adapt and change to those things that are not necessarily comfortable for you or not working out for you.
Yeah.
I think this would be a lovely moment in the show to take the inspirational pause, which is a really light-hearted segment that I like to ask all of my guests some of the things they might do to get some downtime. So do you read?
I do, yes, not as often as I'd like. I do a little bit of reading. I'm reading The Midnight Library at the moment.
Me too.
Fabulous.
I was gifted
I'm really enjoying that.
Me too.
Wonderful. So I'm really enjoying that. And yeah, I like to do when I've got something, although I bought a cross stitch kit. I really like sewing. Like I find it quite a good mindful activity. And I got a little one, and it was like We All Stayed at Home 2020, and I only just finished it last month, and I think I bought it about this time last year, so I was chuckling at
well
that.
Done you for finishing it. Well done you for finishing it.
Finishing it, yes.
And what do you like to listen to? You said you listen to music, Radio 6. Do you listen to podcasts? Could you recommend a podcast?
Do. Yes. Oh, a podcast. Well, I'm a bit... When I listen to podcasts, I don't listen to a lot of actually, there is one that I can definitely recommend. It's called Sentimental in the City, and it's about Sex in the City, and it's so, oh my gosh, it is just so hilarious. It was wonderful, and I was so gutted, I mean, when it finished, but it's really good, and I would definitely recommend. What I was going to say before is that a lot of the podcasts I listen to, so I'm quite into like my complete other persona, although I do share this sometimes on Instagram, is I'm really into like Marvel films and like comic books and Star Wars and stuff, so I actually listen to a few podcasts around that, but Sentimental in the City, definitely, that's a big recommendation.
Great. I've heard, I think it was on the Self Care Club, one of them recommended that one as well, so
yeah,
great.
Yeah, it is really good.
Do you watch much TV? Do you find time to sit down and watch anything recommendable?
I don't watch a lot of TV, I'll be honest. I don't really watch a lot. I think the last thing, again, kind of my geeky self, I think one of the last things I watched was Falcon and Winter Soldier on Disney Plus.
Okay, we'll put that down. Falcon and Winter Soldier.
Falcon
with
and
the
Winter
kids.
Soldier. With my husband, he's a geek as well. But yeah, I honestly don't watch a lot of stuff, so it tends to be something else that another member of the family is watching.
Yeah, so you can sit down and be with them.
Yeah, which is fine. I prefer like the reading or doing something else.
And you mentioned cross-stitching. Can you recommend any other apps or anything that you're using, or gadgets or tools that you use a lot?
Trying to have a think. I use so an app that I use quite a lot that I had, and this is for business and for like just life organization, is called Notion. So it's kind of like, if I don't know if anyone can remember Evernote, so I think Evernote still exists, but I used to be a big fan of Evernote. It's kind of like Evernote, Google Docs, Asana and Trello kind of all mushed together. It's this really great, it's like there's an app, and you can use it on desktop and things as well if you go to the site. So it's just a really great organizational tool. I use it quite a lot now. It really helps. It's unstructured enough so that I can make it fit the way that my brain works, whereas I find it quite difficult to use some of the other tools because they never quite give me what I need. So but I use Notion just as much for like organizing like lifestyle stuff and just trying to keep it on top of things, like life admin things. I just find it super useful.
Wonderful. So thank you for those. So coming back to the questions that I have, as you're building a really strong mentoring practice, how do you make sure that you find the space and time, even the energy, to juggle everything that involves? So meeting with your clients and, like we've talked about quite a bit, Instagram posts and not getting that burnout, that balance between being really professional and productive, but not going for the overkill of doing too much.
Yeah. I think I found it a lot easier once I had children in some kind of strange ways, because I think it kind of there is a very definite end to the working day. So with the age that my kids are at, so that's quite helpful. But one of the other things that I do is that I try and have set days for certain tasks, generally speaking.
That's interesting.
So I try and keep Mondays and Thursdays free of any meetings or clients and things, because I find, not just kind of in terms of like managing the tasks that I've got to do, I just find energetically I need clear white space in my week, or else I feel frazzled and a bit anxious and a bit kind of overfull. So it really helps just to kind of have everything set up to make that happen. So things like my online schedulers will only let people schedule things in for Tuesdays and Wednesdays, and that in itself is just such a big help in terms of protecting that time, because I have Fridays off with my daughter, so I only work Monday to Thursday, and usually it's about kind of like 9ish till about 3 when I go and pick my son up. So it just kind of helps, it helps protect that time, if you like.
Wonderful. What are the things that you do for yourself during the week for self-care and sort of not maintenance, but, to feel full beyond the maintenance, if possible?
Definitely on those days where I haven't got, and I mean, even on the Wednesday, so just like, again, the way that I've got the week set up. So my little boy has just recently started going to a breakfast club, so he really wanted to go, and I was like, okay, if you want to go, I'm going to send you, because my daughter goes to nursery earlier than school time. And that's been really lovely, because it's freed up a little bit of space just for me, just to kind of like, it's just that little bit of recharge time. And what I tend to do is, I've got a spin bike, not the really posh Peloton spin bike, but it's a spin bike, and I do my Peloton, I've got the Peloton app, and I really enjoy it. It's fun. I don't have to think about it. I just get on the bike and do what they say, and it's set up in my conservatory, so I can see the garden, and it's just a really nice thing that I do for me, and I feel really strong and healthy after I've done it. And that's a really fun thing to do. I just really enjoy doing that at the moment, and it feels really good to have that. And then what we also do as well, just kind of the way that we've got things set up, is that me and my husband alternate evenings when we do like the bedtime for the children. So with my daughter just being little, it often needs one of us to be there for quite an extended period of time. So when I'm not doing that on an evening, it's just time just to kind of have a cup of tea, to sit down. I've been trying to do more journaling lately, so trying to kind of reignite a bit of a journaling practice, because I used to be, quite consistent with that, and then that kind of fell by the wayside. So I've been trying to just get back into that a little bit, without kind of having the pressure to be consistent in any way, and just doing as and when I need to. And having that bit of time, and then doing a little bit of yoga as well. And also I'm quite enjoy watching ASMR videos on YouTube. Really? So I find those really relaxing. I'm definitely one of the people who gets the tingles, so I quite like watching one of those, or I will listen to a meditation or a yoga nidra or something on Insight Timer as well. So I find those things helpful.
I was going to ask, do you think mindfulness comes into your day-to-day and into your business? How would you say that you find moments of mindfulness?
I think it's one of those things, isn't it? It's always a bit of a struggle. I'm not going to lie, that it definitely takes a bit of time. Something that I did this morning is I learned this really simple practice. I think it was through something I saw on YouTube. But sometimes if I'm feeling a little bit like, when your shoulders go up and you start to feel a little bit tense and stuff, and if I haven't got a client call or I've got a bit of space, I'll sit down and I do this little practice where you kind of move your eyes very slowly around the room, so it kind of like soothes your nervous system, slows down your breathing. So instead of like, when you're a bit stressed, your eyes might dart around a little bit. It's kind of to counter that, and to kind of like, on like a very like physical level, it's supposed to really help, and I find it really, really helpful. So I might just sit down and just allow my eyes just to drift around the room just for like a minute or something, and it just kind of really, it obviously makes me a lot more present in that moment, and calms me down, and just kind of it just makes a big difference, and just it just kind of helps relax any tension and things.
That's a great one. That's one I actually sometimes do with the children in class. So rather than them have to sit and close their eyes and count their breath or whatever, that they just sort of outline shapes around the room. And it definitely helps with them also. And how do you go from the energy of one client to the next client? Is there something that you are aware of that you need to do for yourself to ground yourself? between clients, or do you find that the energy on those days is fine and you can flow through the clients without necessarily absorbing too much energy?
I find it easy, I'll be honest. And I think this is because of the nature of what I work with people around. It's quite, it never feels heavy with people. Like, and I know, you know, some of the clients that I work with do, like, the nature of their work is a lot more emotionally charged, is a lot heavier, and they need to have like very consistent practices to help them manage the space holding that they're doing. And I don't find that with my clients. And I think, and obviously business can be heavy going sometimes, you know, if things aren't going the way that we want them to. But I've never felt it to the point where it's felt like there's the only time I ever do feel that is if I run a retreat. So I've run a retreat a few times, and generally they are a little bit more health and wellbeing focused than business focused. And after a retreat, I will need 2 days off just to come down, just because I've been so on. But I don't tend to find it with the clients during the day. I think it's just, I don't know whether or not I'm just good at calling in the right people. I like to think the people I work with at the moment, they're just like, I think, again, this is part of like sharing your authentic self, as I think that when you call in the people where working with them is just,
you're aligned.
Kind of what say, it's just kind of it's flowy. It doesn't feel heavy in any way. So I don't feel like I need that. But I think if I was coaching around mentoring around a different topic, that might not be the case at all. So,
but also I feel like the way you've structured your days and the clarity that you have in what is important for you and what you need to sustain your practice in your business, you're able to really embrace that and work with that, so that on the days that you are being present and fully dedicated to your clients, you have that energy in you because you haven't drained yourself dry from it.
Yeah,
so that's definitely a really key piece of advice, I think, for people who are wanting to build their coaching practices. I think we can start totting up all the hours available and how all the money that we could generate, but it's not necessarily what it's all about, especially if you want to have longevity.
I think one of the difficult things is sometimes as a coach in business, I think sometimes we think we have to be seeing clients, or I think definitely when we start out, I think it could be easy to think, okay, so I've got like this amount of hours, therefore I can see this amount of clients. It's never really the case. And that's one of the things I often say to people when they're starting out, is like the number of clients you think you can hold space for at any one time, it's probably going to be a lot less than that. But yes, I think if I was seeing clients every day, I probably would need a lot more downtime between them. But yeah.
And one of the last things that I love, one of the comments that I've read on it's more of a quote: have a plan, but do it light. Could you kind of give a bit of guidance around that advice?
Yes, I think it's have a plan, but hold it lightly. And I think it's that thing that it's kind of embracing the magic, I think, that because I think what happens is if we kind of plan things to the nth degree, it kind of leaves no space for the universe to come in and add some magic and offer something better to come along, offer something to kind of take us off track, which is actually like a really good, like a good kind of off track. But at the same time, I do think we need to plan. I think at least I do. I think some people are kind of find it easier not to, but I like to have a plan. Like I feel grounded, I feel supported. Like it really helps me like hold a vision when I have a plan, but I like to hold it like lightly because I like to leave that space for magic and and for other factors other than myself to come in, and for flow and things, and for intuition to have a role in things. I don't think there's much benefit to having a plan and holding it so tightly that you don't allow anything else in or become massively disappointed if it doesn't work out. And I think it's not a great energy to have with it. And I think in that quote, I think one of the things I might have said was with my daughter, I'd planned a home birth and it didn't work out. Unfortunately, we ended up in hospital, but it was absolutely fine. And I think I can remember the midwife saying to me when I was in hospital, like, "Are you all right?" Like when they said, "Oh, we don't really want you to go home. I think you need to stay in." and there's, were you all right? Are you all right? Like thinking I was going to be really disappointed, and I was like, oh, I'm fine, because I'd planned for what I wanted, and I think this is the thing. It's like, plan for what you want, plan for like the ideal situation, but I think when you can hold it lightly, it doesn't. It's not. I just think it kind of shifts the energy a bit. Yeah, definitely. So I was able to I still had like, you know, an amazing birth and an amazing birth experience with my daughter. It wasn't any less than a home birth. It was just different.
Yeah.
And I didn't have that. I think if I'd held on to that home birth so tightly, I would have been so disappointed, and I didn't want to have that. So
lovely. Yeah. I love that advice. And what would be the piece of advice that you want your kids to remember forever?
Oh, wow, that's a really, really big one. I think it would be something around, and I can't think of like a nice way to say it, but something around always honouring themselves over other people. And I can remember I've read, I think it's Untamed by Glennon Doyle.
Yes.
And she has, there's something in there that she talks about, and I think she says it to her daughter. It's like, you know, don't disappoint yourself to fit in with other people. Like, always disappoint other people to stick to yourself. And I think that's such a, and it goes against so much of what we're taught is acceptable in society in terms of like not letting other people down and things like that. And I think yes, we've all, like, we don't want to be like horrible to other people, but I think it's so important that we can honour what it is that we need, what we want, how we want to live our life. And if that means disappointing other people, then sometimes we're going to have to disappoint other people. And I think for my kids, you know, it's like I want them to have the confidence to be true to themselves.
Comes back to that authenticity that we were talking about at the very beginning of the show. That sums up your message, I think, for your business mentoring. Thank you so much, Laura. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on the show today.
Oh, thank you. It's been lovely to chat.
The idea of blocking boundaries and allowing space to energize and come home to yourself is a big takeaway from this week's chat. I feel inspired to really question what it is that I do that suggests I behave in an authentic way. I have to question if I really know what that looks like. Perhaps this is where a coach comes to play. Are there things I try to hide about my true self? No matter how open we are, I think a lot of us fall into the trap of wanting our lives to look better than they actually really are. And it reminds me of a book I read last summer called The Authenticity Project by Claire Pooley, and I loved it. Without giving too much away, it revolves around a group of 6 people that pass an anonymous notebook around the town, and they jot down their diary thoughts. One leads to the next, and through their honesty, life really opens up for them. But I find it difficult to really know what's necessary to share and what's not. I don't think it's because I'm particularly private or protecting any hidden story or secret. I just genuinely don't feel like there's all that much to show. I suppose I open up here with my thoughts and opinions, and I don't need a camera to make things look pretty. You form your own images of what you interpret from the conversation, and that's something I truly love about podcasting. It's intimate, it's a community, and we can take things away from it, even choosing to compare ourselves. Ultimately, we're comparing the images in our own heads with words that you have your own connotations and understandings of. And it's driven by a desire to grow and educate, the conversations on topics of interest. There's a mindful approach to podcasting as you go in knowing mostly the topic you're about to listen to. That's where I find I'm thriving at the moment, through listening to thought-provoking conversations, as I can reveal about myself that I will never stop learning. It drives me daily to listen to others, read more, and be curious about life, especially my own authentic self. I know I have opinions and I have a real desire for understanding. What is it that you really know about yourself? What are your true desires? What do you value in this life? Anyway, I leave that with you. I hope you have a fab weekend ahead, and I look forward to sharing more thoughts with you next week. And don't forget, I really appreciate, this is where I don't sound authentic at all when I have to say, please rate, review, like, and subscribe. You can actually really do whatever the hell you like.